We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? This is the Glory UGA podcast, the podcast designed for all of you diehard Georgia fans out there. Thank you guys, first off, so much for being here today. If you haven't already, please go ahead, subscribe to the channel, turn those notifications on, get a ton of content coming your way to get you prepared for the start of the 2025 season. So get those notifications on so you don't miss any of that content. Like the videos, comment, get that conversation started, guys. All that is a huge help, and I greatly appreciate it as I continue to try to grow this channel. So thank you for that. Today on the show, I am going to be ranking Georgia's top 5 sleeper players entering the 2025 season. This is a list I love doing every offseason, guys, because everyone knows about the Gunnar Stocktons of the world. Everybody knows about the KJ Boldens, the CJ Allens, the Nate Frazier of the world. And don't get me wrong, it's still fun to talk about those players, to break down their game, and discuss like how good can they be. Can they take that next step in 2025? That's still fun. We love doing that, and we do that here on this show. But personally, I kind of find it a little more fun to dig a little deeper and find those players who are like completely flying under the radar prior to the new season, but that could still end up being big time contributors for Georgia in 2025. So that is our mission here today on this episode. But before we do that, guys, I'm going to get to the list here in just a second. We first have to define what a sleeper player is, because different people define these things differently. I did my list of the Georgia's top 5 breakout players last week and reading some of the comments, which I greatly appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the video and comment. But I can see I tried to define to the best of my abilities what a breakout player was on that show. But it still seemed like there was a little bit of a disconnect between what some people that were watching the video were defining as a breakout player and what I defined as a breakout player, which is all good, right? So I just want to make sure we're on the same page here, speaking the same language before I actually reveal this list of players. So to me, again, a sleeper player is a little different than a breakout player. To me, a breakout player, those are players I look at as like they're already known commodities. They've already played a lot for Georgia. They've already started a lot of games for Georgia, but now going into the new season are ready to maybe take that next step and become an outright star, maybe a household name nationally outside of the Georgia fan base. A sleeper player, on the other hand, to me, again, is a player who's flying under the radar. A way I kind of look at it is, let's say there's a national talking head out there. Let's say like a Josh Pate, any national podcasts out there that are trying to break down the Georgia team, the Georgia roster ahead of the season. And a sleeper player would not be mentioned in that breakdown. If you have a rival fan base trying to break down Georgia for their listeners, these are players that they would not mention, players that they don't know about, that are completely off their radar. But they're also players that you guys know about. Diehard fans are aware of them because you follow recruiting so closely. But the casual fan doesn't really know who these guys are, right? And so one more thing here, for you to qualify for my list, again, this is just how I do it, right? To qualify for this list, you could not have started a game at any point in your Georgia career. Okay, so if you started 1 or 2 or 3 games last year, like London Humphreys, for example, I think he's a guy that's, if somebody's breaking down Georgia outside the Georgia fan base, some sort of national talking head out there, they're probably not going to mention London Humphreys. They'll mention, Colby Young. They'll probably mention the transfers, Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas, but they're probably not going to talk about London Humphreys. But I think London Humphreys is a guy that can help us win games this year. When he started 3 games for Georgia last year. So he doesn't really qualify for the list. So I just want to make sure before we get into it that we all know what I'm talking about when I say sleeper player. I'm sure there's going to be some questions, but I tried my best to define that for you guys. All right, let's get to the list. Coming in at number 5, we'll start at 5, we'll work our way down to number 1. I have redshirt freshman tight end Jaden Riddell. I really like this guy coming out of high school. All right. I think that he is a player with an immense amount of potential as a receiving threat. I know everyone, we always compare everyone to Brock Bowers. Is he the next Brock? No one's the next Brock, because as I often say, Brock Bowers is one of one. There is one guy on the planet that is Brock Bowers. So we got to stop comparing guys to Brock Bowers. But saying that, Jaden Riddell does have some of the same skills. A guy that can go out there and make the contested catch, a guy that when he gets the ball in space can make guys miss. can take a 10-yard route and turn that into a 20, 30, 40-yard gain. He has that kind of speed, that kind of athleticism, has really, really strong hands. So I really like this kid's game. But again, when you look at Georgia's roster, if you're breaking down Georgia's roster heading into the 2025 season, you're not a diehard Georgia fan. When you look at Georgia's tight ends, are you talking about Jaden Riddell? No. You don't know who Jaden Riddell is. You know who Oscar Delp is. You know who Lawson Lucky is, because those are the guys on the roster this year that have played tight end for Georgia, right? That have made some plays in those big time games against Texas, against Alabama, in the college football playoff, right? Those are the players people talk about at tight end. No one's talking about Jaden Riddell. And look, I get it. He's not going to start for Georgia at tight end, but you know how we run our offense. We play three tight ends, guys. Anthony Rossick didn't get to Athens until the summer last year, and that guy played a significant role for Georgia in our offense. Now, I think we misused him. That's neither here nor there. We can have that conversation later. I have had that conversation on the show. But we play at least three tight ends. And right now, going into fall camp, Jaden Riddell is slated to be that number 3 tight end, which means he's going to play for Georgia. And with the skill set that he brings to the table, the athleticism that he brings to the table, I think he's got a shot to really help Georgia, to be an impact player, not just blocking, but also doing things in the pass game. And here's the other thing, too, guys. I know we all know who Oscar Delp is. We know who Lawson Lucky is. We love both those guys. We love those guys. And I'm excited about the steps they can take in 2025. I'm very hopeful. I think they did some really good things the back half of last year. But at the same time, neither of those guys has like firmly established themselves like a go-to guy at tight end. There's a world, like I know those guys have a couple years ahead of Jaden Riddell, no doubt, but there's a world where Jaden Riddell just comes in, gets some opportunities early in the year, and just completely balls out, and all of a sudden, like Jaden Riddell is getting a lot more reps than maybe we anticipated coming into the season. I don't think that's out of the question because I think this guy is an extraordinarily gifted pass catcher that got bigger during the offseason, got bigger during last season, kind of took that redshirt year and hit the weight room, added some good weight, can now function more effectively as a blocker. He's always had that skill set as a receiving tight end. So that's just a guy that I'm looking at this year that's going to do things to help Georgia win. I just don't think people nationally and some people in the Georgia fan base, like, again, I know you diehards know who he is. Casual fans, are they really familiar with Jaden Riddell? I don't think so. So I think he definitely qualifies as a sleeper player for Georgia entering the 2025 season. All right, coming in at number 4. I got a guy I'm really excited about. It's been a minute, guys. It's been like 3 years since we have had a true, legit nose guard body. A guy that had that body like a Jordan Davis and actually was at a point in his career where he could actually help us, right? It's been a minute since we had a guy like that. Last 3 years, it's been Nas Stackhouse. And don't get me wrong, Nas Stackhouse was really good for Georgia. Just held down that spot for 3 years in the stead of Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis leaves after 2021. But he also was never a dominant guy. And it's not Nas' fault. The guy did the best job he could. But he just didn't have the same body, the same skill set that Jordan Davis did. Could he eat up some double teams? Sure. But not like Jordan Davis because he wasn't a 340, 350-pound guy. That's just not what he was. Well, Nnamdi Boko is that guy. He's the type of body that we recruited specifically to play that position, to be a guy like Jordan Davis. Now, will he be Jordan Davis? TBD. I don't know, man. We'll find out. The guy's still really young. But there was a time in Jordan Davis's career where he wasn't Jordan Davis yet. Right? I remember the first time this guy really actually did something. He got into the game up midway through his freshman year against Tennessee. He was like, all right, like you can see some flashes, but he still wasn't there yet. And steadily throughout his career, got better and better and better. And I think Nnamdi could potentially take that same path in his career. Now he's still young. He's a redshirt freshman. I don't think he's going to start for us this year. I think it'll probably Jordan Hall at the zero tech nose guard. But Jordan's a unique guy. Can he play zero tech for us? Yes, absolutely. He has the body type, the size, the strength to be able to do that. But I also think he has the athleticism to play some 3-tech. But so I don't think Nnamdi is going to start there, but I do think he's going to play a lot. If you go back to G-Day, I hate that it wasn't on TV this year because I know not everybody got a chance to see it. But if you were there, you saw Nnamdi Boko substitute in liberally with the number 1 defense. Like he was with the black team, which was the number 1 defense, and he got a lot of reps at that zero tech. And that dude, I thought, looked really good for a redshirt freshman. So I'm very excited about what he can do. And guys, look, even though he might not start, that doesn't preclude him from being a big-time contributor for Georgia's defense. You know how we rotate on the defensive line. Unfortunately, the first half of last year, we were so banged up. We had guys playing between 50 and 80% of our defensive snaps on the defensive line, which is crazy talk. Jordan Davis in 2021 played 39% of our defensive snaps. We rotate a lot. That guy was a first rounder and only played 39% of our defensive snaps. So Nnamdi Boko being a true zero tech body for us and taking the strides he took this offseason, and from what I saw from him during spring practice at G-Day, I am convinced that he is ready to help Georgia. And this is a guy, again, nationally, no one's talking about Nnamdi Boko. Like, no one out there is. You diehards, again, you know him. Casual fans, they know Nnamdi Boko. I don't think so. So I'm going Nnamdi Boko, number 4 on my list. Coming in number 3, a guy that I struggled with. These next two, I went back and forth on if they qualify as sleepers. But I ultimately settled on, yeah, they do. But coming in number 3, I've got edge rusher Quintavius Johnson. Now, the reason I struggled with Q here is he spent most of the spring repping with the one defense. And that was by necessity because Gabe Harris wasn't healthy. Ilo Mendoza was still with Army. He wasn't in Athens yet. So but we had no bodies. We had very few bodies. We had him and basically a bunch of freshmen. And we had to take Chris Jones, who we recruited as an inside linebacker, and turn him into an edge player in spring practice because we just didn't have bodies out there. We had to have guys out there to actually be able to practice and do what we do from a practice standpoint. So that's why I struggle with him, because he got a lot of reps with the number 1 defense. He opened G-Day as the starter at edge. But I also don't anticipate him opening the season as the starter. I think that was what we saw in the spring, was more out of necessity. I think Ilo Mendoza, we'll see, he's coming up a level, coming from the G5 to the Power 4. But I love the skill set. I'm very curious to see what we do with Gabe Harris. This is a guy that through this point in his career has primarily played the 5-tech 4. It says move situation to the edge at times. We recruited him as an edge player. So now that we have an opening at edge, does Gabe Harris make that move over there? Does bringing in Ilo Mendoza mean that we can use Gabe Harris more at the 5-tech, which is what he's been playing more in his career to this point? I think that's all to be determined. I don't know how that will shake out. Fall camp will go a long way helping us figure that out. So a lot of that's still up in the air. But I don't think that Quintavius Johnson is going to start. Okay, and again, I know that you guys who follow Georgia football as closely as you do, who are subscribed to this podcast, and you read every practice report, and you're digging for information, you know who Quintavius Johnson is. But again, when people are breaking down the Georgia defense ahead of the 2025 season outside the Georgia fan base, are they talking about Quintavius Johnson? Do casual fans know who this guy is? No. In my opinion, the answer is no. But this is a guy, again, I believe can absolutely help us. He got a ton of reps. And let's go back to the end of last year, or the end of fall camp, guys. Going into the season last year, this is a guy that was making noise, generating buzz during fall camp. I had the opportunity to go to a fall camp practice last year, and I laid eyes on this guy, and I was like, all right, this guy looks like he'd be something. And he was raw. You could see that he was still a work in progress, but you could also see the talent. You could see the raw talent there, and that was exciting to think about what this guy can be in the future. And the future might be now. It very well could, because this guy is tall, he's long, he's athletic. I think at some point in his career, he's going to be a big-time edge rusher for Georgia, all right? The buzz started in his freshman year as a true freshman. It continued throughout spring practice, did some good things at GA. So even if he doesn't start as a sophomore, I think this guy is absolutely in line to get reps at that edge position and help Georgia win football games this year. I think he has really good pass rushing potential. I also think he has enough size. He's gotten a little stronger, a little bigger, added a little bit of weight. I think he's more equipped now this year to hold up on the edge, setting the edge against the run than he was maybe a year ago. So I know that one's kind of iffy because he did play a lot with the one defense during the spring, but he hasn't really done it on the field yet. During a real game, has not started a game yet for Georgia. All right, coming in at number 2. Now, this is the guy that I struggle with the most on this list, because I spent basically all spring waxing poetic about this guy, because I was able to go to a practice during the coaches clinic, saw this guy, and I was like, oh my God, where have you been? What? And I'm talking about wide receiver Jeremy Bell. So yeah, you can go back and you can look at my videos from the spring, guys. I did an entire video talking about how crazy this guy is, how good he is, and don't sleep on him. So I struggle with it from that perspective, because I've been talking a lot about him. I think you diehards know about him. There's a video that was making its way out there in social media about 2 weeks or so ago, him jumping over some of his teammates, I think 3 of his teammates to dunk a basketball, which was not surprising to me, because I told you guys over over spring practice that he won the GHSA slam dunk contest as a senior in high school. And you go back and you watch some of those dunks that won him the contest. He was doing that, jumping over 1-2 guys to dunk basketballs. The guy's wildly athletic, wildly crazy leaping ability. I don't know exactly what his vertical is, but it's got to be off the charts, man. But he's not. But he also hasn't done anything for Georgia on the field in actual games yet. He played a couple snaps against Tennessee Tech last year, but that's it. That's it. But I saw him during the spring, and I'm like, whoa, who is this guy? To get at G-Day, and he spent basically the entire second half of G-Day with the number one offense, and we were getting him the football, and he was making plays. He made a play on a slot fade over Janelle Aguero, who Janelle Aguero had great. He was in great position. He had good coverage on him. It was a great throw, and it was also just a ridiculous catch by Jeremy Bell. Like, he just has that crazy knack to go up and just out-athlete people, even though he's a smaller guy. He's listed as 6 foot. I know I said last week talking about the receivers that he was like 5'9", 5'10". I know he's listed as 6 foot on our official team roster. Y'all, I've been close to the guy. I don't know if he's 6 foot, man. I don't. From what I can tell, he wasn't any taller than me, and I hate to admit it, but your boy's not 6 foot. I wish I was. I wish I was, but I'm not, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't taller than me. So, sometimes they exaggerate a little bit on those official lists. But hey, whatever it is, I don't care how tall he is because the guy's wildly athletic. He's got leaping ability for days, strong hands, and you get this guy the ball in space, watch out. That's all I'm going to say. Watch out. This dude has home run speed. He's twitchy as could possibly be out there. He's not going to start for Georgia. We're really stacked at the slot receiver position with guys like Zachariah Branch, Dylan Bell's been playing some there. But I'm telling you, Jeremy Bell's too good to keep off the field. He's going to be in the rotation. We rotate a lot of receiver. He's going to play for Georgia this year. I don't know how much. That's to be determined during fall camp. But this guy, I think somewhere between like maybe 5 to 15 snaps a game. I don't know. I think you have to find packages, ways to get him on the field and get him the ball because he's a big play waiting to happen. So I know, like right now, a lot of you are like, well, dude, I've heard about Jeremy Bell. Yeah, you're a diehard Georgia fan, and I spend a lot of the time during the spring talking about him. But nationally, is anybody talking about Jeremy Bell when they're breaking down Georgia? No one. I defy you to find someone nationally who's talking about Jeremy Bell. It's not out there. You're not going to find them. Casual fans in the Georgia fan base who decide to start paying attention like in early to mid-August. They don't know who Jeremy Bell is, right? You guys do. I get that. But again, I still classify him as a sleeper. Hasn't started for Georgia, hasn't done anything on the field in meaningful games. But he's a guy that I can outright convince, guys, that is going to help Georgia win football games in 2025. And I cannot wait to see him on the field. And then coming in at number 1 on my list, a guy that I'm really excited about. I've got defensive lineman Xavier Mloud as my number 1 sleeper player for Georgia. Again, I know it's like a broken record here. I know. You diehards, you know about Xavier Mloud. But nationally, when people are breaking down Georgia, are they talking about Xavier Mloud? No, they're not. Again, so he qualifies for me. 6'4", 315 pounds, going to his redshirt sophomore year. So year 2 in our system. Remember, he was the guy that was at South Carolina as a true freshman. Spent about half the year with them. Things went sideways. It was kind of a mutual thing between him and the coaching staff. Don't know exactly how that went down, but it wasn't pretty. So he got like half a year development at South Carolina. And then he comes to Georgia, was banged up, one of the many defensive linemen banged up to start last year. And that set him back as he's a guy that needed some development since he missed a good chunk of time at South Carolina as a freshman, still a young player. But as the season wore on, especially when Christian Miller went down with an injury late last year, and that allowed Xavier Mloud to get on the field a little bit more than he was prior to that, I was wildly impressed with Xavier Mloud. I think this guy is the real deal on the interior of Georgia's defensive line. I think he's got some positional versatility. And the cool thing about our defensive line, guys, I think most of those guys do have positional versatility. I think Jordan Hall, like we mentioned, has some positional versatility between the 0 tech and the 3 tech. We know Christian Miller can play 0 tech and 3 tech. I think he's much more of a 3 tech. I think that's really what his body's built for. He's a Tyler Clark clone to me. Maybe a little bit more explosive, but that's what he reminds me of. But he was playing 0 tech behind Nas Stackhouse as a redshirt freshman. That's how he first got on the field. And I think also Xavier Mloud has some of that positional versatility. I've seen him at Georgia play some 0, play some 3. Okay? So he has that, which will allow him to get more opportunities on the field. But this guy, I think has a chance to be a difference maker. Like a legit difference maker for Georgia this year. Absolutely. I considered putting him on my breakout player list. I strongly considered it. I'm not quite ready to go there yet. I don't know if he's like a national name yet, but it also wouldn't surprise me. I think the thing working against him is like we have guys like Christian Miller ahead of him, Jordan Hall right now ahead of him, but also it wouldn't shock me if Xavier McLeod was getting reps ahead of Jordan. Like Jordan missed all of last year with 2 stress fractures. I'm hopeful we get him back to being the old Jordan, but we don't know. If we do, he's awesome. Don't get me wrong, but Xavier McLeod late last year, guys, go turn on the SEC championship game. That guy was making play after play. Like he was almost living in the backfield when he got opportunities in that game. Turn on the Tennessee game from last year, guys. The dude is a disruptive force. He's got explosiveness off the ball. He can give you some pass rush from the interior, and he's strong at the point of attack. And he was doing that as a redshirt freshman, a guy who got very little true development as a true freshman at South Carolina because of how that all went down, and then also missed the first part of his first year at Georgia with injury, missed a lot of fall camp with injury. So that set him back from a developmental standpoint. So for him to be able to do what he did late last year against the level of competition that he did it against, that was impressive to me. That spoke volumes. And again, what did I see during the spring? What did I see at G Day? I saw Xavier McLeod doing what Xavier McLeod does. I mean, I remember last G Day, 2024 G Day. Like this, the first time I really laid eyes on him in a Georgia uniform, I guess. It was with the number 2 defense, but he was making plays. And you kind of discount it, you dismiss it. You say, oh, well, it's against the number 2 offensive line. Like, what does it really mean? I think the guy's good. I think the guy has a chance to be a legitimate difference maker for Georgia. He does all the things you need guys to do to be difference makers. He's got the explosiveness. He plays a good pad level. He can give you some pass rush. He's strong at the point of attack. Uses his hands well. Disengages well. He anchors well. All the things you want him to do. Has positional versatility. He checks a lot of boxes, y'all. A lot of boxes. So I know that we have a lot of defensive linemen this year that I think can be really good for Georgia. I think Christian Miller, he was on my breakout player list. I think he might work. I think he has first round potential. I think he has that type of potential. Will it happen? I don't know. I don't know, but I don't think it's crazy to suggest that. I mean, Jordan Hall is a big time 5-star guy coming out of high school years ago. The injury set him back. We'll see where he is this year. We know Elijah Griffin as everything number 1 defensive tackle in the country in the 2025 class, but he's a freshman, but he's still a talented player. I mentioned Namdi Boko. So we had a lot of talent there. I think Xavier McLeod might end up being a dude for us guys. So I got him as my number 1 sleeper player on the Georgia roster entering the 2025 season. Real quickly, guys, before we get out of here, I do want to just throw some honorable mentions at you because every time I make a list like this, I'm torn. Every time I make a list like this because I got to leave guys off this list that I want to put on the list. I'm always like, man, maybe I should make it a top 10 list. But no, integrity. All right, you got to keep it at 5. So I gave you my 5. Got Xavier McLeod at 1, Jeremy Bell at 2, Quintavius Johnson at 3, Boko at 4, and Jaden Riddell at 5. A couple honorable mentions here. DeMello Jones at cornerback. All right, I think he gets lost in the shuffle in that competition for that cornerback spot opposite Dalen Everett. Everyone wants to talk about Daniel Harris, who started the last couple of games of last year, which makes sense. And of course, you want to talk about Ellis Robinson IV, the number 2 player in the country in the 2024 recruiting class. One of the most high-profile cornerbacks Georgia's ever recruited, right? And we want to see him last year. We didn't see him. But you look at the battle, you're like, okay, well, it's between Ellis Robinson and Daniel Harris. Yeah, they're in it, but DeMello Jones is also in that battle. And, like, no one wants to talk about DeMello Jones. Guys, DeMello Jones is a football player. That dude is a big-time player. He's a great athlete, smooth in coverage. He can flip his hips, got good speed, good ball skills. I'm not saying he's going to win the job. I'm not telling you that. I'm just saying don't forget about him in that competition. I think he sometimes just kind of gets just left out of the mix there when he's firmly in the middle of that competition. I know he wasn't as high profile of a recruit as Ellis Robinson IV, but the guy was a really highly sought player in his own right, and for good reason, because he can straight up play. So just don't forget about DeMello Jones. At receiver, I mentioned, obviously, I had Jeremy Bell at number 2. Another guy that can easily qualify as a sleeper player for Georgia this year at the same position would be Sokovie White, a guy that I've talked about many times throughout the past year or so. I love Sokovie White. I think he's a really talented football player. It's kind of the same thing with Jeremy Bell. Like, how many reps are you going to get? And right now, I think Jeremy Bell's ahead of him in the slot. And you also have Zachariah Branch. You have Dylan Bell playing a lot in the slot. Well, Dylan's going to play some different positions for us this year. But if you look at G-Day, if you look at what I saw during the spring, it was Jeremy Bell was the one that was getting the reps with the number 1 offense. Sokovie was not. Sokovie was making plays with the number 2 offense, but wasn't getting reps to the number 1. Now, that doesn't mean that can't change during the course of fall camp. It absolutely could. It could change. But right now, I got to give the edge there to Jeremy Bell, but I wouldn't count out Scobie White. I think he's a really talented player in his own right. Another guy, Bo Walker, as a freshman, he was generated a lot of buzz during during spring practice, and I was able to lay eyes on him. I'm telling you, man, the buzz is real. The guy can play. He's going to play for Georgia this year. I don't know how many reps he's going to get. He's not going to start, but I do think he's going to get some carries for us. And if he produces early on, he's going to get more and more and more carries. So love Bo Walker. Another guy here that almost made my list because I was really impressed with what I saw from him during the spring. And that is 5-tech defensive end Justin Green. All right, then that's a position where we're losing TID, lose Michael Williams. Like we've got a lot of inexperience there. Again, I'm curious to see what we do with Gabe Harris. He played a lot. He played there some of the past couple years when he was getting opportunities on the field for the most part. Is he going to slot in there as our starter at the 5-tech, or will he go over to the position we kind of recruited him as more of an edge, or does the introduction of Elam Adozi into the fold as a transfer from Army, does that mean Gabe Harris will play more 5? That's all up in the air. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that along with Joseph Jonah-Ajanye, Justin Green was getting a lot of reps with the number 1 defense during spring practice. Now, again, how much of that was due to necessity with guys like Gabe Harris being out and Joseph Jonah-Ajanye himself was kind of working himself back into the mix. He was missed the back half of last year with a foot injury in the first part of the offseason. But Justin Green at 6'4", 275, a Gwinnett County product, as a redshirt freshman, I think he's going to play for Georgia. Again, we rotate a lot on the defensive line. You need guys that can play, you need bodies, and we just don't have a ton of experience there. And he's one of the bodies that we have, got a ton of reps, which accelerate his development during spring practice. So I don't know if he'll be a difference maker for Georgia in 2025, but I do think he's going to be a contributor. So just another name there for you to put in your back pocket. But all right, guys, there you go. That's my top 5 sleeper players for the Georgia Bulldogs entering the 2025 season. Again, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here and checking out today's show. If you haven't already and you enjoyed today's show, please go ahead, subscribe to this channel right now. Turn those notifications on. Got a lot of content coming your way in the coming weeks and months. Like the video and comment. I'd love to hear from you guys. Who are your sleeper players? Who did I miss? Who did I leave out? Do you agree with some of these? Love to hear from you guys. So thank you again for being here. I'm Tyler, and as always, go Dogs.
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.